World reacts. The 60-year-old woman who stole Fazza's heart. They whisper of her in silent corners, across cities that never met her eyes. A tale rising like dawn over dunes, a story the world repeats without breath. A woman carved by years and storms, a woman who walks with the calm of oceans, and the world wonders how her steps reached the heart of a prince made of fire and horizon. They speak of her age as if it were a crown, 60 years woven of triumph and sorrow, 60 years folded like secret letters, 60 years that shaped her voice into something steady as desert wind. She moves without trying to shine, yet every gaze turns to her, as though she is the line between night and morning. Fazza walks through kingdoms of gold, but he looks for her as if she were the only light. He stands in crowds, yet feels her quiet. He hears her name even when no one speaks. Some say he loved her because she was rare. Some say she carried a depth he had never seen. Others claim destiny wrote their steps long before birth. But none know the truth that lived between them. The world reacts with disbelief. How can a prince choose a woman shaped by time? How can youth bow before wisdom? How can a royal heart cross the bridge of years? Yet love does not measure the mirror. Love does not count the seasons. Love does not fear the distance between birthdays. Love only knows the soul, and her soul was a land he had never traveled, a land he could not forget. They tell stories of her silver hair, threads of moonlight resting on her shoulders. They say he touched one strand once and understood the meaning of eternity. They speak of lines around her eyes, lines that held laughter, pain memory, lines that taught him what truth looks like, and he followed those lines, as one follows constellations to find home. The world tries to explain it. They try to rewrite it. They try to shrink it. Because love this uncommon, love this unshaken, love this fearless, does not fit inside ordinary minds. People fear what they cannot measure. People judge what they cannot touch. People mock what they secretly wish for. A love that does not break. A love that does not fade. A love that chooses in spite of everything. She never asked for his devotion. She never reached for his crown. She walked quietly. She lived quietly until destiny opened a door, and he walked through it with a heart unarmored. He saw her, not the world's version of her, not the whispers around her, but her, the woman with a past that could fill oceans, the woman with a silence that could steady storms, the woman who never needed saving, yet somehow saved him. And when he stood beside her, the world gasped, as if royalty had rewritten its own laws, as if age had become a bridge instead of a wall, as if love had risen above all the rules and made its own sky. The world reacts, but the desert knows better. The desert remembers every story. The desert keeps every secret. It watched them meet. It watched them wander. It watched them fall into the kind of love that only destiny can explain. The world kept watching her, trying to understand the woman, whose footsteps echoed in a royal heart. She moved through the days like a quiet star, never brighter than needed, never dimmer than truth. Her life before him was a tapestry, woven from years that shaped her spirit, years that carried storms and mornings, years that taught her how to rise without sound. She had once walked alone, not because she feared connection, But because life had taught her that silence can protect what words cannot, people saw her strength. But they did not see the nights she faced. Nights when time felt heavy. Nights when the world forgot to be gentle. Yet she held herself together, piece by piece, breath by breath, until she became a fortress made of soft stone. When Fazza found her, he did not meet a woman who needed saving. He met a woman who had already saved herself, and that truth pulled him closer. More than beauty, more than youth, more than the illusions that surrounded him daily. She was real. She was the kind of real that cannot be taught, cannot be bought, cannot be imitated. She carried memories like folded letters, some filled with sweetness, some filled with ache. She had loved once. She had lost once. She had seen promises break. She had watched seasons turn without mercy. But even then, her heart refused to turn cold. Her kindness refused to disappear. Her spirit refused to collapse. People wondered how a prince, accustomed to admiration, drawn to the new and the shining, could find himself tied to a woman who carried decades before he took his first breath. But he was drawn to the truth she held, a truth that did not seek attention, a truth that guided without force, a truth that stood unshaken even when the world trembled. He saw her wisdom, not the kind found in books, but the kind carved in experience. He saw her gentleness, not the kind softened by fear, but the kind strengthened by survival. He saw her presence, a steady light that refused to flicker, even under the weight of judgment. She lived in simplicity, a life of quiet gardens, a life of slow dawns and soft evenings, a life where every small moment mattered. She had never chased crowns, never chased titles, never chased glory. She only chased truth. And that truth shaped every step she took. Fazza walked beside her, and the world did not understand. They could not see that he did not stand above her. He stood with her, equal in spirit, equal in depth, equal in destiny. He found in her a mirror, not of youth, but of soul. Their conversations stretched like desert horizons, long, thoughtful, endless. She spoke with a voice steady as sand. He listened with a heart open as sky. Sometimes they spoke without words. Sometimes silence carried more than language. Sometimes a single look between them told stories the world would never hear. People judged her age. They counted her years, as if they were chains. But Fazza counted her years as treasure. Each year another lesson, each year another victory. Each year, another reason his heart bowed to hers. Her past became a sanctuary for. The world rose like a storm around them, voices loud and restless, eyes sharp with judgment, hearts quick to measure what they could not understand. They whispered her age as if it were a warning. They spoke her name as if it were a question. They tried to turn her years into walls. They tried to paint her love as a mistake, but she did not bend. She had weathered storms far greater, storms that arrived long before the world knew her, storms that taught her how to stand in silence and let truth speak for her. Fazza walked beside her, unshaken by the noise. He knew the world reacts out of fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of the uncommon, fear of a love that does not follow their rules. He saw the tremble in their judgment, the uncertainty behind their words, and he chose her even louder, even stronger, even truer. Some tried to rewrite his heart, telling him love should be younger, telling him desire should look a certain way, telling him a prince must follow a script written by others. But he refused the script. He refused the weight of expectations. He refused to let the world decide the shape of his happiness. He had seen too many empty smiles. He had touched too many fragile illusions. He had walked through halls filled with glitter, only to find loneliness hiding behind every door. But with her, there was no emptiness, no illusion, no glitter, only truth, only depth, only a love that felt like home. She felt the world trying to tear her apart. She heard the echo of their disbelief, the sharp edges of their doubt, the heavy shadow of their envy, but she did not let their voices reach her heart. She had spent her life learning the value of silence. She had spent her life discovering that peace is not found in the approval of others, but in the acceptance of self. She looked at Fazza with a calm the world could not break. He looked at her with a devotion the world could not shake. Together they became a quiet rebellion, a choice that stood against everything ordinary, a love that refused to hide, a truth that refused to bow. They walked through nights when the world seemed louder, when the whispers felt like storms, when eyes followed them with questions, when opinions tried to crush their steps. But every night, without fail, they found each other again, in words, in silence, in presence, in a bond untouched by noise. He held her hands, hands shaped by time, hands that carried decades, hands that once held sorrow, hands that now held him. And he understood something the world could not. He understood that her years were not distance. They were depth. They were wisdom. They were the foundation of a love that felt eternal. She watched him speak with courage, a courage rare in royal stories, a courage rarer in love. He told the world without words that he did not choose her in spite of her years. He chose her because of them, because they gave her a strength untouched by fear, a beauty untouched by time, a grace untouched by judgment. The world reacted, but they kept walking, step after step, heart after heart, truth after truth. They